Hello everyone. Today we're going to show you how to remelt your ballistics gel. I'm going to try and show this all in one video, so I'm going to do it kind of sped up. But just to give you a laydown, this is a 10% gel from Clear Ballistics Gel. It's very shot up, and I'll show you that in a second. But some of the things you'll need is a mold. You will need a pretty sharp knife. You're going to need some forceps to get your old bullets out of the gel if anything is left in there. And yeah, we'll get started. So I just have a little setup here, a little workbench on the old bed here. And this is where I'm going to start to process the old gel block that's been shot up. So let me go ahead and show you the gel block. Okay, so here is the shot up gel block. As you can see, it's got quite a bit of particles in there, probably about 20 or 30 rounds in it. So we're going to have to get rid of some of those particles. And I've already washed it up a little bit. You can see some water droplets there, but I'm going to continue washing it for you, because you always want to wash your old gel block, especially if you're shooting outdoors like I do. Lots of dust out here in Arizona, so you don't want that dust to get in your mold, and that's why you want to rinse it off on the outside first. So we'll go ahead and show you that. This next part's pretty obvious, folks. I'm just going to rinse off the outside, and I'll show you that real quick. I'll try and speed it up for you, make this video as quick as possible. Just trying to get all that dust and dirt off the outside. It's also got some cardboard on it, because it was sitting in a cardboard box. And these things are sticky, so they tend to pick up some of that cardboard particles. That's pretty much it. I've already done the other side, so there we go. And now we'll show you the next step of the process. Alright, so we're back in the makeshift workshop here with the work table. The block is wet from being rinsed, obviously, so you'll want to get that water out of there, or off of there rather. I'm just using a paper towel here. You definitely don't want to use tissue, because it'll leave a lot of residue from the tissue paper, and that'll get in your block and cloud it up. But you also want to get it pretty dry, because that water will also change the dynamics of how this thing melts. So you want to get all the water off of it. So I'm just very lightly tapping it so this thing doesn't scrape apart on each side. Pretty easy. It's on a clean piece of construction paper, and I'm just patting it so that way this paper towel doesn't fall apart on us. Okay, and I'll get the bottom here a little bit. Sorry about the bad camera work here. This is my first video. We're going to make sure this thing gets relatively dry. And you can see it definitely has a lot of material inside of it, which we'll address next. Alright. Alright folks, we're back here set up to cut this block apart. I've gone ahead and put the mold right next to the block to make this as easy as possible. Since I've done this a few times, I'm just going to show you guys how I cut the block. I basically cut it into about 8 sections, one at a time, and then I'm actually able to get the entire block into this mold without having to do a second step like a lot of people are showing you. So I'm just showing you the quickest, easiest way to get your block refreshed and re-melted after you've shot it up a few times. So we'll do that for you here, and I'll probably speed this up for the actual video feed, but just you'll see how it's done. So we can actually fit this entire block into this mold, all cut up, and I'll get all the crap out of it. This section is going to take a while, so I will hopefully speed it up for you once I figure out how to do that. But this is important so you can do it all in one step when you start melting. Alright, so here we go. The knife I'm using, I don't know what kind it is. Just like a basic kitchen knife. The length is important. You don't want it too long. You don't want it too short. You want to be able to get the entire block serrated and cut with a back and forth motion that you're comfortable with. So I'm using, it's about a 6.5, 7-inch blade here. I think it's about a 6. And this block is a 7-inch 10% block. So this works pretty easy with that, with the leverage. You'll want to push it aside as you're cutting when you get it started. It makes things a lot easier. That way you can get in there so it doesn't bind up on itself. And then at the very bottom, you'll probably want to lift it up a little unless you have some sort of a bottom, which I don't for this video. Last little bit, you'll probably just rip out. Okay, so there's this one. This one doesn't look too bad. I see a little bit of black there, a little bit of debris from some powder blast. But the most of this is actually looking pretty good. So this you could almost put straight into the mold right now. But I am going to get rid of some of that black residue so it'll help keep the block from clouding up quite as much. And I'll show you how to do that here. I'm just going to cut right up to where the problem is here. And then I'm going to cut the side out, and that'll give me access to that channel which has all of that good powder residue in it. It's not too bad, but you can see there's some powder residue here. So I'm just going to use my fingers, and there's probably better methods to do this. And I'm going to try and scrape out what I can. Probably should put the scrapings in a little container or put them aside, which I'm going to do. And make sure they don't get caught back up in the gel, because you don't want that stuff in your remelt. Otherwise it'll cloud you up and it'll make your gel block darken really fast. So I'm going to actually use the knife to cut that section off so I can get better access to it and just rip that residue off with my fingers. Probably use gloves here if you're worried about it. I'm not worried about it, but if you want to use gloves here, it's pretty recommended. Other than that, this piece looks pretty clear, not too bad. And this is going to go straight into the mold, just in the corner, just like that. And I'm going to go ahead and put this piece in the mold to match it. Just like that. Some people say that you should break your gel up into tiny, tiny little pieces, but then they're doing this next step in 2 steps because it doesn't all fit in the mold. So I'm showing you how to, if your gel block isn't in too bad a shape, which mine wasn't, how you can do this easily in 1 step without having to chop everything up into tiny, tiny little bits and then put it in there and then have it overflow on you. Or put it in there up to the top and you still got a bunch left over because it's in little bits, and then you got to melt part of it and then put the rest in, and it's a mess. This is the easy way, because we like to do things easy and reasonable around here at The Reasonable Consumer. Alright, so next piece, here we go. That off. Again, not too bad as far as black powder residue, or the bullets that I was using were not really that dirty of a powder load, and I was usually about 20 yards away when I was shooting this. So there's not a whole lot in here, which makes it easy. So if your block is really, really torn up, you're going to have to tear it up into more pieces. But since I only have a few holes with some powder residue in it, this job's going to be pretty easy. If you're using shotgun slugs at close range with bird shot, even buckshot, you're going to have all sorts of issues with, you know, your powder breaking off into the gel block, especially with things like your caps or your cups for those shotgun loads. If those cups get in there, they got all sorts of residue they bring with them. I didn't really do that with this particular block, so I'm in pretty good shape here. You can see that's not that bad. There's a little bit there. I'm going to go ahead and just let that be, let that slide. But the big part here, I'm going to get some of that out right there because that looks pretty bad and that needs to go. So we'll go ahead and do that real quick here. I'm just going to cut around it to where I have access to it. You can see I can get in there now and get some of this black residue out of there. Either bare fingers or use your knife if you're comfortable doing whichever. That part is up to you. And I do recommend having a little bin for all your little bits that you're pulling out, because I don't actually have a bin. I'm just tossing them on the construction paper here on the side. I should have had a little bin here and I wasn't prepped for that, so live and learn. It's my first YouTube video of any length here, so we'll try this. All right, so get all this black goodies out of here. I can feel the grits as I'm pulling it. Probably need gloves for this, as mentioned before, but for this sake of being reasonable and convenient, we're just going for it. Couple of nice bits right there. And this is all just unburnt powder that's gotten into that gel block, which is going to mess it up. Okay. Get our last couple little bits here. And then, so this corner piece looks pretty decent. Got most of it, about 90%. I like to get about 95% of this stuff out. If you try and do all 100% of it, or 99.9%, you're going to be here for hours. It's not what I'm about. Quick and convenient. Get most of it out of there so the gel block looks reasonably good when you're done. Get some of these final little bits out here. And that looks pretty cloudy right there. See another little bit. So I'm going to actually remove this whole part of the block because it's going to cloud up the block when I melt it. So be careful if you have to do this little tedious work here. Don't cut yourself. Let's see how bad that is. Probably hard to see and my lighting's not the greatest, but there's quite a bit of cloudiness in there, a lot of black smoky cloudiness, so that's gone. That's going to help make the end result look a little better. So this looks pretty good, and you want to put it in there like a puzzle piece. So I cut this thing open this way, I believe. Yep, this way. So make sure it goes in the same way as you cut it, and it'll fit together like a puzzle piece better. And that way you can fit all your gel in the same block. Unless your mold is real tall, which most of them aren't, you want to do it this way so you don't have to do a two-stage melting process. Okay. All right, we got 2 down. We might be able to do this one in 6 pieces. Let's find out. Here we go, next piece. And all I'm doing is cutting it almost like you would do with a chainsaw on a big log. Kind of work your way around the center. That way this thing doesn't bind up, and it makes your cutting so much easier. And this would probably be even better if I had a table, which I do, but not for this video. Okay, that's good. Doesn't look too bad. A little bit of cloudiness in there. I'm probably just going to deal with that because that's pretty deep inside the block. But there is some pretty bad, gnarly stuff going on the bottom here that I'm going to get to. And I see a few pieces of shrapnel inside it. But you could take your forceps. I bought these on Amazon. They're 10 bucks for a pair. One's curved, one's not. Just going to go in there and grab those little chunks out. If I can get to it. There we go. Those forceps come in handy. You could use a pair of needle nose for this job. I'm just going to get a few little particulates out. Looks like little shrapnel pieces from around. And then I'm going to cut the bottom off, and this one's done. There we go, got that one out. Yeah, those are solid metal. You probably don't want much solid metal in your remelt. Otherwise it'll just mess up the bottom, which is fine. But okay, this one I like to take a little V-cut for stuff like that. And just cut one side halfway, and do the other side. Try not to lose too much of your good clear gel out of that, but you're going to lose some gel doing this. Got rid of that really nasty piece. There's a little another piece there. I'm going to go ahead and live with that little bit of cloudiness there. It's not too bad. It's not going to hurt it that much. And this one's ready to go. Goes in the same way, just like a puzzle. There we go. Just like that. Nope, that ain't it. Is that it? Nope, that ain't it. Turned her around, that's what it was. I think it goes in this way. Nope, that ain't it either. Make sure it goes in the right way, folks. Otherwise, it's not gonna fit. It's this way. Found it. There it is. See that? We're almost halfway there, folks. All right, we'll continue here. I'm going to judge this based on where all the deposits are on my cut. It makes the rest of the job easier if you know where your deposits are. You cut around those deposits so you have easier access and you can get more of the stuff out for an easier job there. A piece of shrapnel on the top there, getting rid of that. And you know what? I'm going to do this one in two. So I'm going to cut it clean in half. Actually, no, we're going to do thirds. So this will be a 6-piece job here. Not bad. Better than what I used to do with 8 pieces. I'm going to put a little support under there with my old Henry rifle kit. Make it easier to cut. This doesn't look too bad at all. That's almost livable. There's a couple of pieces right here I'm going to get to by hand. But this one is not in bad shape. It's towards the middle of the block. You have a lot less powder residue once it gets towards the middle because most of it dumps off early on in the block. So this one, I'm just going to set it in there as it is, one piece. It's a pretty good piece size there. That's about, I'd say that's about a 3 or 4 pound piece. Doesn't even need to be worked on that much. But you do need to put it in there the right way. There it is. There it is. This is the way. It goes in a lot smoother when you know what the hell you're doing. Okay. All right. Last piece. Just going to go straight down the middle. I see some grits that I can get to. Last piece always goes the easiest because you can just pry it right apart. Okay. That bottom piece off of there. Not too bad on this side. Couple of items to address on this side, which I can get right with my fingers. Except for that one that's dug in there a little. That doesn't look too bad. This one's in good shape. Okay. This doesn't look too bad. Just going to dig a little bit of a gouge out of that one and call it a day with this one. Make sure to cut away from yourself. I'm not an expert. I'm just a reasonable consumer that wants to get this done in a reasonable amount of time. But don't push the knife towards any part of your body. Something that I learned a long time ago. There you have it. It's all cut up. 6 pieces total. And a couple of corners. Taking my trash here. And you're good. Okay, now we'll show you how to melt it. Alright folks, so we got our gel here, getting ready to melt it. I'm going to set my container, it's a Nesco 18 quart roaster oven. I'm going to set it to about 275 and we're going to wait between 4 and 8 hours, and I'll check it at hour 3 and hour 4 and so on, hour after that. We'll see what happens to this block. Alright, we'll talk to you in a bit. Time lapse, here we go. Okay folks, this is what we're looking like at 4 hours and 15 minutes in. Still a few bubbles here, which I'm just going to go ahead and hit them with my little knife here. So you just kind of pop your little bubbles there while it's still kind of hot and juicy. And this will be the bottom of the gel block, since it's got a little bit of bubble action on it, and I'm not too worried about that. Gotta be reasonable. Alright folks, thanks for your patience. We will have the final result. Okay, here's our final result. We wound up having to cook this block an extra hour and a half. So total cook time on this was 5 hours, 45 minutes. You can see we didn't really get all the bubbles out of there. There's a little bit of a cloudy mess right in the middle, but I believe that is all on the very bottom of the block. So we're going to pull it out of this container here, this mold, and I'll show you how I do that. I did let this gel block cool for 12 hours after I turned the heat off. And so we'll go ahead and rip it out of there and see what it looks like. Okay, here we go. Best thing to start out with is one corner. Try and get it to release from the sidewall there. And now we got the top pretty well released. The sides going. I do suggest removing the block from the mold after the 12 hours is up, and don't wait too much longer. Otherwise it'll be harder to remove it. The longer it stays in there, I think it gets stuck in harder. So I've got a good corner going here, and I'm going to get my whole hand in there, start pushing down to release more of it. I'll get both hands in there. Try and give you a little better angle of this so you can see what I'm doing. There we go, something like that. Hopefully you guys can see it better now, with a better angle on it. We do have it started. I'm going to get both hands in there and just try and release it from the bottom, which is the hardest part. Takes some grip strength here, but it's coming. And as you go, you got to work it a little bit at a time. You can see how it's releasing from that sidewall there. That's going to help it to come out easier. There it comes. Now we can get underneath it. It should come right out. Got our workbench here. Okay. Didn't quite turn out as good as I thought, but not too bad. See, that's all on the top there now, so it should give you a show of what we've all been waiting for, which is the final product. Definitely not perfect by any means, but it'll work. And the block has not discolored that much from the original before I cooked it. So probably a little undercooked, but it's good. All right, guys, well, for now, that's it for the video. And hope you all have a good day, and we'll be seeing you. Bye.